Ryan Lochte is belatedly expressing regret for creating an international scandal. The Olympic swimmer made headlines around the world when he gave NBC this account of what happened to him in Rio.
Ryan Lochte was on today, Friday morning. Within 48 hours, he had a gun put to his head.
They pulled us over. They pulled out their guns. They told the other swimmers to get down on the ground. I'm not getting down on the ground. And then the guy pulled out his gun. He cocked it, put it to my forehead. He said, "Get down." And I was like, I put my hands up. I was like, whatever.
Matt and Hoda, Ryan Lochte stood up to these guys. Honestly, that was a brave and dangerous thing to do.
But Lochte changed some crucial details in a follow-up interview with Matt Lauer, and in yet another interview, he backed off a bit more.
The first version of the story you told, Ryan, was much more about the mean streets of Rio.
Yeah.
And the version we're hearing now is much more about a negotiated settlement to cover up some dumb behavior.
And that's why I'm taking full responsibility for it. Is because I over-exaggerated that story.
Go. Joining us now here in Los Angeles, Kim Seraphin, a commentator, actress, senior editor for In Touch Weekly magazine, and a one-time aide to Rudy Giuliani. All right, so let's start with Lochte. This was not an over-exaggeration. This was not being less than candid. This was a lie, a complete and total lie, and now in two successive interviews with NBC, he appears unwilling or unable to admit that.
Yeah, well, obviously, he now has some coaching. He hired a big crisis communication expert, and that's why he went and did that sit-down interview with Matt Lauer, and more is going to air on the Today Show on Monday, so we'll hear a little bit more. Look, this is par for the course. When you get into trouble, you try to make amends, and you do an interview, you do this apology interview, and then you hope you don't lose your endorsement deals, which could be $5 million to $10 million.
Making amends. I'm sorry. I lied. I shouldn't have lied. It was a really bad thing to do. I mean, these weasel words, I think, are not cutting it. If crisis communications or not, this is the classic non-apology apology.
It's true. I mean, he did say he was immature. It was immature behavior. He over-exaggerated. One thing that I think that a lot of people are talking about is when Matt Lauer said, so are you willing to now say it wasn't robbery? Because that was really the one point. It was robbery. It was robbery. We were the victims in this whole thing. And Matt really gave him that opening to say, are you willing now to say that it wasn't robbery? And then he kind of said, well, it could be robbery. It could have been making amends.
Beyond that,
restitution.
Well, I kind of felt threatened because the guy had a gun. Originally, they were in a taxi. They were pulled out by somebody pretending to be a cop. The gun was to his head. I mean, this was not just embellished. This was fiction. But let's go back to the original story. I mean, NBC's paid billions to the Olympics, airing the interviews, and Lochte makes these charges. We saw the reporters say, and this was a very brave thing for him to do, to defy the gunman. Should the press have fallen for this? I mean, this always seemed like the story. It always seemed to me there was something wrong with the story, but I didn't think he was making it up. Should the press have been less gullible here?
You know, I think it played into that, as Matt Lauer said, it played into that whole narrative of the mean streets of Rio, and I think so people were quick to accept it because of that. Plus, you know, it has that aspect of the Olympics, the salacious, the aspect, the kind of tabloidy aspect that we didn't really get. There was that Gabby Douglas issue that came up that people were talking about, but then you had ratings were down with the Olympics, the seats were empty in the Olympics, so this kind of fit into another kind of way to talk about something when maybe some of the events weren't getting the kind of buzz. So I don't think I think it made sense that the press accepted it, because the way that Billy Bush kind of grabbed him, saw him in the store, and then grabbed him to the interview.
Well, I do think NBC did a good job having been fed the initial lie. It is a lie.
Which Al Roker said many times. It was a lie. It was a lie.
In aggressively covering the aftermath and trying to hold Lochte accountable. Kim, we'll see you a bit later in the show.